Now
Is that your stomach, Jim?
No, I was gonna say that was a content element there.
Good to go?
Yes.
All right, so we'll call the meeting to order, 6:07. Some announcements, nomination papers are still available for local office. You have until March 14th to obtain the papers and March 18th to return.
Correct.
Community signs event, High Tide Tour of River Road area, that was today at 1:30. How'd that go?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angus had some comments. I confess I got there 5 minutes late, coming in on a red eye last night and in recovery mode,
Okay.
so, but yeah, no, it was, I think all went well. Any thoughts? You agree, disagree?
Well worthwhile. The timing was excellent, where it was high tide, very alarming. I mean, it's definitely, it just illustrates a lot of concern. It was really good having a lot of neighbors there. We talked about the continued efforts we'll be making to get as much state and federal funding support as possible. But that's very competitive, and the support letters are very helpful.
Mhm.
And so if people aren't already subscribed for updates, to do that. But it's well worthwhile.
I guess along the alarming or line of thought, we saw a high tide today, but we saw the remnants of a higher tide yesterday. That was not only, marginally higher, I think it was, 1/10 of a foot higher, but I think more significantly, there was more of a storm surge probably. There was more storm driven, or either that or more downriver flow. And there were photos that shot by a couple of people that showed significantly higher water than what we saw today from yesterday.
We had sent the notice to every property abutting the entire study area.
Mhm.
So, yeah, in addition to the physical signs that were posted on River Road, so.
Good.
The decision to hold today's event was only made about a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And as soon as the decision was made, we all just tried to get the word out as broadly as we could, as quickly as we could, to align with the high tide.
Great. The next item is there's a matinee performance of Les Miserables this Wednesday at 3 p.m. in Nantucket Middle High School. This is free for residents age 60 and above, sponsored by the Nantucket Arts Foundation. This show is open to general audiences next weekend, March 14th and 16th. Sage Center events, see the town website for dates and details. There's a whole bunch of interesting and new events going on the next month or two. And then we're having an RSV clinic on March 12th, that's tomorrow, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you need to register for it that day. Yeah, it's on the town website. One I wanted to add that's not in here is the CPC is having their annual public hearing this Thursday at 6 p.m. This is a chance to put your thoughts into in terms of what kind of CPC projects we should be supporting in the next year. Regular business, item A, public comment. Anybody who wishes to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to, there's nothing on the consent agenda. We'll go to item C, which is town manager updates.
All right, first item, the previously scheduled meeting with the City Council's Public Works and Safety Committee was postponed from March 4th to March 18th. So we will be there a week from today. Since the prior discussion we had of the bridge, the city did go ahead and apply for the additional $500,000 state small bridge grant, and we actually heard from DOT earlier today. We had already heard that from them, so we knew their review of the application was underway, but they followed up today with some specific questions for additional detail of the estimated budget and the sources that have been allocated and what's been expended, all of which is in there, but just they wanted to repack it to make it very, very clear. So I told them I would we'd work on that get them something by the end of the week. They also said they'd like to connect with us for a remote meeting sometime next week. So I reached out to John Eric White and Wayne and Mike Morrison to see about getting something scheduled for the week of the 18th, so we can connect with the state by Zoom. So that's all promising.
Yeah.
In terms of the attention that's being given to this by DOT. We did also get information that I think you're all aware of, that we're not going to be eligible for that federal bridge formula program. Kind of dizzying how unhelpful that money is.
Yeah.
But that's the federal government for you. And I have been working with Tim on updated intermunicipal agreement. So I do expect we'll have a draft that we can circulate this week. And you know, ideally, we can get that at least to make the council aware of that before next Monday. I know they're not gonna go that far next Monday's meeting. I don't wanna elevate expectations to unrealistic levels, but I think we wanna have something that clearly frames what the decisions are gonna be.
Relative to that, I read through your letter, I thought that was really, really well done. It
Thanks.
explains everything and the timeline and what we're looking for, but in a manner that I think the report can appreciate. It's
Mhm.
really, really good, well done.
Thanks.
So, the hope is to be able to get that draft to the new report.
Well, I don't know, because this board's not meeting again, you know, before that, so I think,
Is it, I don't know whose call this is, perhaps the chair's, legitimate for us to, be provided the draft and get back to you with our thoughts on it? Because I think it'd be helpful if the draft, I don't know when they're publishing their agenda, but if it was possible for that draft to be, if, assuming none of us had an issue with it, to be available for their agenda, that might help speed things along.
But isn't this a subcommittee?
it is.
So this is not the entity that would make decisions on it.
No, but it would be, it's a rare opportunity to connect with them, so, it has been the goal to at least get them something to, you know, because this was great to start the conversation, but to really get down to kind of brass tacks, if you will, in terms of what are the issues on the table.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems to me that we want to connect with the subcommittee, even though they're not ultimately the decision-making body. If they have input, the earlier we have that input, the better.
Yeah, I guess I would just be concerned about overwhelming them with all this material, because this is not on their radar at all, where it's front and center on ours. I mean, if we were able to have it ready, I don't see any reason not to, but, that might be unrealistic.
It's aggressive.
Yeah,
The main issues, obviously, the funding split is paramount, and we're not doing any changes from the prior draft. That's something that they're gonna have to tell us if that's not agreeable to them, but, our starting point is gonna be the same as the prior, 50% of net cost. It's the change we've been working with Tim on are more the nuts and bolts of it. How is procurement gonna be handled, who's awarding the contract, who's signing off on invoices to ensure that things are done properly, who's doing the project management in the field. So that's some content that we've been working to get into the IMA that earlier, the one that was in place a few years ago was very lean on those details.
Yeah.
But those details could evolve no matter what you put out to Newbury for.
right.
So you don't have to have those components 100% nailed down at this point.
And that's actually been Tim's advice. He agreed that we needed to bulk it up to provide a clear framework for those things, but some of those are gonna be, he's cautioned against trying to get too specific with those terms, because it's gonna have a lot to do with personnel and
Well, it
who's.
also locks Newburyport in without any wiggle room too, if you nail everything down.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, you almost want to leave, you know, this blank as responsibility, for each task. So that it's clear that it's open for discussion. I mean, I don't think we want to propose anything too definitive.
Well, other than, I mean, there are some things that, for instance, on procurement, you know,
Yeah.
who's going to award the construction contract like that? And if the answer is each community has a representative and they have to agree, that's the answer. But that's the kind of thing that there has to be an answer.
Yep.
You know, who's signing off on an invoice, because we,
Yeah,
so.
no, I understand.
Yeah.
I guess what I was suggesting that if we provide them a draft IMA, that we not say who that is, that we leave it open
Okay, yeah.
for discussion.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, the discussions we've had at a staff level have been that we feel that with the way we're currently configured, we'd be well equipped to provide significant support on the administrative aspects of managing the project.
Yeah.
The procurement, the contract award, managing the grant reporting. We would look to Newbury to take the lead role on the field oversight, because they are much better equipped to manage multi-million-dollar projects than we are, because they do it all the time. So that's generally the division of labor. And when we met with the mayor, you know, a couple of weeks ago, that I think, you know, you were there for that.
Yeah.
That seems to be something that's agreeable at a staff level. In terms of like which offices are better equipped to do that. I think we have a, really strong finance.
I don't see any harm in proposing what we think is reasonable. I'm just making it clear in the presentation that this is just a.
Yeah, it's all negotiable, but we're trying to, what I'd like to do is get as many of the loose ends tied up so that we can focus on what we're really focused on, which is where's the money.
Right.
And not have that get bogged down in these, I think thinking through those things to where their administration and our town are kind of aligned, it gets people more focused on the funding split.
So basically, you're gonna get together with Tim, revise this, and then you wanna come back.
Yeah,
My suggestion is, if it expedites the process, I would like to. I think this is really good, and if you and Tim work out, like you say, division of labor and any loose ends, if that can get it off the Newburyport Council a little quicker, I would have no problem with that. I mean, I don't need to see this thing 4 or 5 times again to be comfortable with it.
what I'll do is I'll send something around and get comments back from each of you individually if it looks like if anything's shared with them, it's gonna be made clear the board as a board hasn't seen it nor signed off on it, but I would only want to send something if we had a level of comfort with it, that it was a good conversation starter. And I do think we can do that.
So, or will you plan on, I was gonna go to the meeting when you were away. I'm assuming you wanted to take back over as the select rep on this?
Yeah, for next Monday. Yeah, that's my plan.
Okay.
I was planning, I already had my schedule to go to the Concom meeting that night, but I will go to the Concom meeting, based on availability. Because their meeting starts at 6 or 6:30, what is it again?
6:30.
It starts at 6:30, Concom starts at 7, probably that's the first part of it.
Okay. All right.
And I was kind of, as of yesterday, their agenda wasn't yet published. I don't know when they're gonna publish their agenda, because, it's fall in the agenda.
All right. Next item is the Whittier meeting. I
So
stubbed for you on that, but I'm waiting for you to take back.
No big excuse.
Wendy and I went to the meeting last week. Yeah, I think it's a good conversation.
Yeah, that was good.
Productive to get everyone in one place, but, we all know that the path to an amendment is unanimous consent. We didn't get, I think the follow-up was constructive, which is basically an invitation to see if the write-up that the Newburyport Special Counsel had done is encompassing of the concerns of the other member communities. And if not, if we would supplement that so that we at least define what are the issues that ought to be on the table for discussion. But if it comes down to it and things like the funding share of capital projects if it reaches a point where it becomes clear that there's unlikely to be unanimity on those things, it seems very likely that the state legislature at some point is gonna need to get involved.
What was Haverhill's stance? Did they have any comment? Because they're obviously the
Yeah.
key on this one.
So it was just the mayor and her chief of staff that were there, very non-committal. The Ipswich town manager tried to get a read on whether there was interest and she didn't say anything.
Previously, she said she had no interest in making any change,
Yeah,
so.
well, she was there, so, one thing that's not on his list that was brought up at the meeting is to change the method of appointment of the school committee members. Everybody thought it should be city council or select board versus the school committee.
I think that would be wise based on how we ended up where we are.
Yeah, I think another thing that would be good to add would be, some requirement for direct communication to the town, you know, they post their agendas, but they don't, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but they don't send them directly to the municipalities. And in fact, they refuse to when you requested that they do that.
Verbally. Not right, but, Angus sent them an email saying, hey, next time you have a meeting, can you send it to us? And they sent us that meeting. And they have a meeting on Wednesday, which not been sent, but I really most of it, I put it on our website, but,
Is it a remote meeting?
uh,
Like the last time the link didn't work.
Yeah, that's another thing, is that they should send us the agenda with live links.
so
Or legitimate, all the information needed to connect.
I don't believe that one was mobile. No, I think that was all in person.
At the last meeting that we went to of the school committee, I think they made a promise to distribute them. I think that was raised and agreed to distribute the agendas. There was some discussion related directly to this.
Okay,
So, I mean,
I guess I wasn't at you're talking about, you said the school committee, the Whittier school.
Whittier.
Yeah, okay.
At the Whittier.
I guess I wasn't at that
Right.
meeting, I tried, that was the one where I tried to go
Right,
on,
yeah.
online and the link didn't work.
You should
That's
show
not the
them
first
how
time
to
that's
set up.
happened.
I'm sorry, Robert, was that?
You should also show them how to set up a room so
Yeah.
that people can participate. They have, the remote stuff is really.
Those services were also on.
Yeah, but as it goes to agendas, that I think I recall they took action to make sure that they go out. That's it.
Are we looking for other comments on this, or is it just?
Sure, if you have
That,
general
you know,
thoughts, I think-
nonetheless, Rob. And everybody, I think that should be in the agreement.
Oh, yeah,
It should be required to do that.
So one other thing, the next meeting, did you see the meeting date? Was that in here?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not sure if it was in, but the March 13th is their budget.
I mean, the next meeting of this committee,
Oh, of the committees, early April, yeah.
yeah,
I didn't recall seeing that.
yeah,
don't
I
think.
can find it.
I don't know if it was in here.
I don't think it was, I wrote it down, I'll find it.
Yeah, I think it's like April 4th,
Yeah, in Amesbury.
yeah.
Can you,
Can't make it up.
when you find that?
No,
would
I'd
you
like
mind
to
just-
give a.
Yeah, could you, email that?
So this would just be the meeting for this group, the
Okay.
working group, like with one representative.
I
or two
see,
representatives.
okay, all right, okay.
April 3rd at
3:30?
3:30, yeah. Yeah, and one of the open questions that we had talked about in the run-up to the meeting, but it didn't actually come up at the meeting in any detail is, you know, whether this task force so-called is, you know, a public body subject to posting and minutes and.
What time did you say, 3:30?
Yes.
Yeah, so, and that's something I did reach out to the mayor's chief of staff in the week prior to the meeting, to make sure they're thinking about those issues and, you know, I think if it wasn't last week, it
It should be
is.
this next.
But that means someone's gonna need to take ownership and taking minutes of things, and I think that's gonna be a hot potato. So.
Yeah. Another point of discussion was whether, somebody from Whittier, like the superintendent, should be part of this group. There's definitely a split.
I think there has to be.
Well,
I think you're fair.
Amesbury mayor was saying, you know, definitely, you know, we should play the same way.
It's not a
we want
secret,
that.
yeah, I mean, just do it, no.
But there was somebody-
I'm taking exception to Havel having been not included in the earlier discussion, yeah, everybody should be involved.
Yeah,
So at the meeting, should they list all the attendees? Merrimack had no representation.
no,
That's weird.
yeah,
Item 6, simplified withdrawal procedures. They have it listed as 2/3 majority. I think that's too low. You know, I would go 80%, which would be 12 out of 14.
That's funny, I was thinking, I came up with the same number, I thought,
Interesting.
not 90% would only allow one dissent again. 80% allow.
And 2/3 is way too low.
Mm.
I mean, that's almost dangerous.
Yeah,
Then the last comment I have on there, they talk about school choice and it said, they're willing to allow for consideration of school choice by the school committee on an annual basis. That's what it's already done. So it doesn't need to be in there.
Hmm.
Um,
So, it was interesting, two of the people that were there had experience with a similar process, and do you remember the town that it was, Angus? It was.
Yeah, it was the Minuteman.
Yeah, man. And so they had tried to revise this and the whole thing fell apart and they ended up doing it again and people left and so.
yes.
Well, I think it could, as Angus said, that ultimately enter the legislature. I mean, if I don't,
I think it was about 19 communities in that, and then about 5 or 6 ended up leaving.
And the school was in one of the communities that left, which is kind of interesting, yeah.
Hmm.
So that is all to say that there's some experience with this process on that committee, which I think is valuable.
I think it's good that it's moving in a
Yeah.
direction that's positive for change.
Yeah. Okay. Next item. Is the harbor.
All right, so this will be coming back before you at a future meeting, perhaps as early as 2 weeks from tonight, but the intermunicipal agreement, I did meet with the town manager in Salisbury about 2 weeks ago. And we've started circulating just some kind of markups. So I don't know if you want to add this for more substantive discussion at the next meeting, but the goal is going to be to get an agreement in place before the end of the fiscal year. One of the key changes that we did put in here is to change the termination option to 90 days period rather than 90 days prior to the end of the term.
Mhm.
That was intentional. There's been some discussion, here in this building as to whether in the long term, Salisbury is the right partner for this service. And there's definitely some interest in exploring, whether Amesbury or Haverhill may be a better partner. But that's not something that's gonna come into place for July 1st.
Mhm.
So I do think it's gonna be in our interest to extend the agreement, for the upcoming fiscal year. But the way this is written, it will give us more time to think about if there's a better option.
Does Salisbury understand that's?
Yeah, I told
Because
them
they're,
that
at
was.
this point, they're dependent upon our pump outflow.
Yeah, it's something that you would want to transition toward that over, and also, we're dependent on their running the pump out boat for us to get the Clean Vessel Act.
Right, we're
Yeah,
usually
so there is
dependent,
a there is a
if we pull a base resource, then they're left with nothing.
No, I think if we make a change in terms of, who is our partner, we want to handle that and, with everything as much lead time, the transition as possible. And that's not necessarily gonna be beneficial. I wanted to leave that option open because I know there is like Dwyer would like to see, a closer, partner geographically.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. They have to come up with two communities.
Right.
Amesbury and Merrimack on the other side.
Yeah.
Before they even get to West Newbury's waters.
So given that, does it make sense to have a shorter term on this?
I think that would be a totally fine suggestion.
I would like to see that. I mean, because also if we decided to pull the harbor bylaw for this town meeting. But if we are working on that, potentially those two could be in alignment.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been, basically, there's a number of different functions the harbor master office serves, and, it's been a little bit, it's not as, they don't really gel between the pump out services and any kind of like issuing mooring permits or dock permits and any associated enforcement. I think we've done better each year at aligning those, but it's different people involved and, it's not a complete harbor master agreement. There's still things that we need to do locally that we do rely on our, member of our harbor committee, Tom Goodwin, to do some of those things. So.
So do you
we did
think-
meet with Tom a couple of weeks ago as well.
Do you think a year is too short for a term? Right now it's 3 years.
I think it's too short,
Okay.
just because,
It'll take us that long to, you know.
yeah, I mean.
What would make it 1 year with 2 one-year renewable options?
It's, we could, it's just, I mean, the way I look at this is, it's just time to negotiate things during periods of time when there is no time. And that's, I think Neil looks at it the same way, as, if, yeah, I mean, I think with the 90-day revocation, there's really no harm in a longer term.
Okay, and it's not with cause, it's just a notice.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's,
So
that would need to be fleshed out similar to what we had written with Merrimack, with the conservation, that, there'd have to be a financial accounting if there was if either party broke the agreement before the natural end, that would need to be fleshed out. This was just language to kind of reflect the idea, but the mechanics of that would need to be spelled out with like an accounting of cost share
Sure.
as a determination.
Is there any, if either party chose to terminate the agreement, the more heads up they give the other, the better.
Mhm.
And not saying something explicitly that there might be longer, doesn't preclude that from happening, but would there be any harm in saying 90 days or more?
No,
So just sort of implying that more notice is better.
yeah,
Okay, so this will be back next week, next meeting?
yeah, let's put it on for more discussion of that. I think the Clean Vessel Act, they changed to, it's now on a calendar year. Yeah, it used to be on a fiscal year, and then about 1.5 years or 2 years ago, they changed it to a calendar year basis, so that's another consideration.
Okay. Next item is budget updates and review of the schedule.
So the main thing here, there's two changes I'd like to bring forward, and because the budget that's been presented, the FinCom is based on what was presented to the board, I wanted to just bring these to your attention. One is professional technical services. Although I did write this before the article request was drafted for the Summer Brook, and that was part of what I had in my mind when I wrote this. But I just think that this, at this point, that both the town generally and the board specifically are really proactively addressing many things on many fronts. And the select board professional technical services over the years has been an account for when there's unanticipated costs that come up, particularly to do with professional technical services. It's nice to have, a place you can hit that, even if it wasn't specifically anticipated when the budget was brought forward. And based on where we are year to date, where we've already spent most of that, I think, the board may benefit from, we're at 83% through the fiscal year. The board may benefit from an additional resource, whether it's for property survey or appraisals, or, one of the expenses that came out of this year was the title insurance policy for Sawmill Brook. For future land purchases, we're gonna build that into the CPA application, but the point is, those kinds of things come up. We've spent, I think there have been, how many filings with natural heritage this year? At least 3, maybe even more.
Yeah,
There was the application for the, all the high hazard tree removal, the Coffin Street, or not, the River Road culvert. These kinds of things are coming up more and more. So I think it's worth thinking about, bulking up the budget for that. And then the other is a very minor thing dollar wise, but in terms of the impact, I think it would make a huge, benefit when conservation had brought forward their proposed budget. The $6,500 was based on the anticipated wages for the summer interns. But we've had a number of meetings with different committees and staff, and I think if we could hire a minimum wage part-time employee to operate a chainsaw and to do some limited trail work, that would be a big plus. Right now, we have volunteers who are happy to do that, willing to do that, but we can't let them do it because of insurance. If we had someone on the payroll and with the proper training, they could do that work at a very low cost relative to DPW where we consistently have, it's just not enough manpower to keep up. But if we had someone we could add to the payroll, as a part-time chainsaw operator, $1,000 would go a long way to keep up with the number of demands that we get for work on trails. So that's the.
So you think you've got somebody who's specifically qualified, not that using a chainsaw requires a high
Yeah,
qualification,
yeah.
but it's a safety issue.
Yeah,
You think that
Yeah,
for minimum wage that you said minimum wage.
I did say it, no.
yeah, so these are volunteers that would do it without being paid.
Correct.
It's just to cover your liability.
Too.
Exactly.
Oh,
There are existing people who are saying, we want to help, and we're saying, we can't. let you."
Okay, I misunderstood.
Well, I was being a little oblique about it. No, it's fine, it's proper, it's just, yeah,
I didn't read through the lines at all.
yeah.
So do you need a motion on these?
Well, I would want to know if those are
I'd
supported.
like to move the select board, add an additional $10,000 to the line item for select board professional and technical services, and another $1,000 to the land steward internship wages line item.
So could that extra 10,000 be used for support from Mark Way? Is that something that would, for the select board,
I did carry that in the town manager budget.
for the select board or for staff?
Oh, for a select board member to participate.
Or
Yeah.
originally we had talked about using him for select board support.
Oh, yeah, definitely, absolutely, yeah.
All right, any further discussion on this? So then we're gonna vote again at FinCom?
Yeah, because it would need to be then brought at a future, not just Wednesday, because it's too quick, but at like the next meeting,
So I'm wondering if we should wait and discuss this together as we have on other ones? Or are you looking for a separate vote?
Really just to refer it,
Okay.
not even to endorse it,
Okay,
so that,
all right,
yeah,
yeah, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you. All right, item F is just informational, if anyone has questions on any of that, you can ask, but it's, just as I've said before, since those working meetings have become so substantial in terms of what we're covering, I just want to keep you all apprised of some of what's on our work plan, which largely aligns with what you see or have seen in the past, but it's sometimes some more nuts and bolts things.
I'm glad to see this in here about the lower Artichoke spillway. We received a couple queries to the select board email. I've just copied your email to.
Yeah.
I think it was John Dodge, you sent one too.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So people are noticing.
Yeah, yes, pretty high visibility
Yeah.
project.
Anything else on that?
Just one other new initiative under item CG, you may have gotten an email from Christian today with a cybersecurity grant. That's something we've opted in for the next year, so everybody on the wnewbury.org email account is gonna be getting those, with that. And, we're graded based on level of participation. So if you are on the list to have got Christian's email, hopefully you'll, do what we have to do over the next year to get another good score.
So that's
But-
relative to select board too, it's not just town payroll.
Yeah.
employees.
Right, yeah,
That one's
'cause it's
something
all,
specific.
yeah.
Everybody want email address and.
Well, we didn't, not every last, because we were limited to 35,
Okay.
so we had to pick 35, so it was everyone on staff and then some others, but we have some very low use accounts. And some others that are essentially like, almost like aliases for others, so. We do pretty regularly thin out the accounts. If I see something with no use month after month after month, we'll often reach out and say, do you still need this account?
It's custom, roughly.
$8 a month per account.
There'll be something sent along with the links and how to access everything eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to item D.
It's just a FYI. It was, attended by, just about every, Essex County chief. And, it's another good event.
So is that, it's not monthly? Is it
No,
quarterly?
it's annual.
Oh, it's annually?
Yeah.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
been a year since you've been to that the last.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's gone by so quick.
Yeah, and there were 15 members of the legislature. Last year, there were 22. It's a pretty high profile event.
Yeah, so. Okay, the next item is an update on the Sawmill Brook Land Management Plan.
This is really just a reminder to keep it on your radar, since eventually, you'll be asked to sign off on that. We did, Michelle had sent this timeline to the chairs of the key, Mill Pond Committee, Open Space, Committee, and Concom back in January. To date, that it hasn't seemed to get a whole lot of attention, which has been a little frustrating, because we have to do this. It has to be done by June 30th. And it is not, it's not so much the amount of work, but the fact that we know everyone's gonna have an opinion. So we've been trying to get it before people sooner, so we can get those opinions and start working toward a draft that hopefully that we can all agree to. And there have been multiple posted meetings of those committees where they haven't taken it up. So,
And even at a meeting where we said you should meet with open space, no date was.
right, yeah. So but we know it's gonna get to like June 1st, and everyone's gonna be like riled up, like, oh, so we're trying to get it out to people, and, so I did the same with this board, just so it doesn't creep up on this board, that this is a requirement of that grant to be done by June 30th. I did not include the whole template. I know I've shared that previously, but it's not a short document.
Okay, item E, department, boards, commissions, and committee updates. Item A is the Florida Commissioners Water Rate public hearing, which will be this is their agenda. Yeah, the hearing is, March 21st at 6 p.m. in the annex. Apparently a postcard went out today.
It already went out.
This went out.
Oh, I thought that was draft.
Yeah. There's also news and announcements that went out. I think it's important to have non-regulars involved as well. So,
This went out to every,
ratepayers.
okay, but you said you feel it's important for non-ratepayers.
Yeah, so there was a news and announcement that went out over
Okay.
email today.
I think we're putting something up on the electronic sign as well as multiple other
Mhm.
news announcements.
I was telling Angus, I have a couple examples of what a water rate hearing should look like, so I'll send them to you and Rob and share it with the water commissioners or not. It's a very formal notice. Okay,
Interesting, how this is water-based thing.
yeah, the Joe's this. Okay, item EB. River Road Resiliency Plan. So this is an update on the schedule. Project timeline, next steps. So I tried to access this from this link and I'm not able to get in.
Oh,
Is this the same thing that you emailed to us? What, the links that were in here?
well, so the two earlier reports about a month ago is
Yeah.
different than those.
Right,
That was the shoreline analysis and the culvert survey. This includes the projections of inundation
Right.
scenarios and.
so this, I mean, this is on the server, I'm not able to get in, and then there was a link from GEI that is not, maybe that's
Okay.
not live, I don't know.
It works for me, but yeah, so when I forwarded it by email, I assumed it would work for you, but if it didn't, we'll
Yeah,
get
was
you
able to
that.
access it. Okay,
Otherwise,
Yeah, it's just not live, so.
yeah. Okay. So comments need to be provided to Christine by March 27th.
yeah,
anything else you want to discuss on that?
When we talk later this evening with the warrant opening,
Okay.
I'd like to talk a little further about them.
Okay. The next item is the, right to farm bylaw, agricultural steering committee. So there was a meeting on Friday at the Grange, probably 30 people attended. Senator Tar was there. I think it was a good meeting. What came out of it is, formation of a committee to work on drafting a bylaw. It would be largely based on Newbury's, right to farm bylaw.
That was the attendance. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I know
Yeah.
that, sorry.
I just wanted to, I mean, there's quite a bit of discussion about like what the point of it is. Some people are very concerned about protecting their rights as farmers in spite of the fact that there's a state statute protecting them. Other people more interested in proactively, kind of supporting agriculture and educating people and that kind of thing. So it's gonna be a challenge. There's 9 people on this committee that are gonna work to draft the bylaw.
This is an ad hoc committee, it's not a town appointed.
It's an ad hoc, but I wish that we had made it a town committee because, I don't know, I think it's gonna be challenging. There was a question about whether they needed to be town residents or not, and it was stated by somebody else in the meeting that they do have to be town residents, which precludes the people from the Grange who set this whole thing up, so that's a potential point of
So,
conflict.
yeah, I was wondering, so the letter that was in the packet was signed the Grange, and I'm curious who the Grange is now.
Well, so it's the 2 people that, are kind of spearheading this,
Yeah.
who were, named in the Daily News article,
Okay,
Jackie
who
Clark.
live in Georgetown.
Who live in Georgetown.
Yeah,
And so they strongly want this to be sponsored by the Grange, but I feel like it's probably gonna be a select board article if it's a bylaw.
Yeah.
Is that true, Angus? Does it have to be a town entity that,
Or a petition article with a
but
recommendation.
if it's just gonna be a bylaw proposed as a warrant article, then it would be a town entity would have to be the sponsor.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah, whether that's petitioners or whether that's a board,
Mhm.
the petitioners would all have to be.
when you said a town, you mean?
Like a committee or the select board, typically the
Oh,
select.
no, but it could be residents.
Right,
Right.
but, yeah.
Yeah. They have signatures.
Yeah. So another thing, these are just logistics. Senator Tar suggested that we give them, or set up a town email that people could send comments to. I don't know how it works if it's a committee that we don't have any affiliation with.
That seemed dangerous crossing the line.
Yeah, so I don't know. I should be on the committee and they just use the select board email address. So these are just some kind of things that are, kind of circulating around.
What are you looking to see you do that's not currently allowed to do? What's the concern? What's lost?
Well, it's more about affirming the importance of agriculture in West Newbury. Some of the things like in Newbury, there's a real estate disclosure. When you buy a piece of property in town, you get this form saying this is a farming community, there may be noises, there may be smells associated with farming. I think the biggest thing is forming this agricultural steering committee, which will help to promote farming, could deal with disputes if they come up.
Because Newbury, you said, and the crop farms, but
Right.
30 or 40 years on Parker Street, we've had cows, and they're built all the houses, and the neighbors complain, so I guess I sort of get that
Yeah,
perspective.
right.
You looked out when you were buying this house and you saw 500 cattle, you didn't know what you're into?
Right, the wind was blowing the other way.
It's funny.
It was well established in the Supreme Court that if you move, quote unquote, move to the nuisance, you do not have standing to
Right.
challenge.
But there are other
I'm not
nuisances.
saying it's, I mean, it's.
Right.
There are other issues that can happen, because we have a neighbor on a street over behind us, and they have chickens, and unfortunately, they have a couple of roosters. They moved in just 2 or 3 years ago. It doesn't bother me, but some of the other neighbors are a little disturbed by it. So that might be one of the issues, I look at something like that.
So, I mean, the goal is to get this ready for fall town meeting. I'm not sure whether the select board would like me or one of us to be involved in this, just to kind of keep tabs on it, or we want to just let them go and see if they can figure out how to decide it. the different,
Well, in autumn, I'd like to request they come in and give us a monthly update as to where they are and feedback maybe be helpful.
mhm.
I mean, if you need another meeting in your agenda,
Yeah,
if you want to, feel free.
yeah, I guess, to me, I think we gotta give them some running and let them see how they do. As an ad hoc committee.
So there are a couple of people that are familiar with town government on the committee, John McGrath, Rich Baker, so I think there'll be some reining in, with respect to that. Senator Tar made a couple of points I just wanted to share. He reiterated that this is an affirmative statement about agriculture. He said it's really important to have the agriculture steering committee and to have controls in there in case the committee starts going rogue, I thought it was really important to consult with other boards as the bylaw is being developed, and I really tried to stress that. It's one thing to have a steering committee, but if you need enforcement and you haven't got the boards to buy into it, then, that could be challenging. And then just about definitions, saying less is more instead of trying to say everything that could potentially be covered, use language like other similar activities and just to allow for things that come up. So that's it. That's my update. I think it was a big meeting and I was surprised at the number of people that were there on the Friday night.
Do you know how many people there are on the Grange, members of the Grange?
There were a few.
Yeah.
A handful. Yeah.
Okay,
So all of these people were not part of the Grange, the majority of people there, but I'm just interested in farming and
when you say very few, less than a dozen?
there were 4 people there. So, but people like, Chris Brandt was there, he's very active.
Yeah.
I think he would be good on the steering committee.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's not our issue, but it would be good to encourage more. I mean, Granges go back a long, long time, it would be great to encourage new members. I've never participated in a local Grange, but I've lived in other communities and, have them. They go okay with that.
Yep. All right. So we're on to F, action items. The first one is review of new proposed potential warrant articles for the town meetings. I guess you want to take the lead on that?
So the first one is the one that, is really was the driving interest in reopening the warrant, which is a separate article for the police. So, I did go ahead and include this in Thursday's, capital improvements committee packet in anticipation that it would be added and referred. I haven't sent out that packet yet, but it's almost done. And I think it says in the narrative, the total cost is more like up to 67,000, but we're expecting to draw about $10,000 from the police cruiser revolving fund to make up the difference to get down to a budget number of 57,000.
Need a motion or?
So 67 actually reflects hybrid.
It does.
Okay, and it sounds like the inclination from the chief at this point, unless I misunderstood, this is for the gas engine vehicle, is it?
He's been, he hasn't said
Yeah.
definitively one way or the other, as there's been some concerns with the
Yeah.
hybrid, in terms of reliability, he'd like to keep his options open.
Yeah.
But I did tell him that's something that's likely to be talked about in detail on Wednesday at the joint meeting. So it's budgeted for the slightly higher cost hybrid.
Yeah, there was a Green Communities meeting back a couple of weeks ago that I participated in virtually, and then it was 2.5 weeks ago, and then when our Green Communities regional rep came in 2 weeks ago to, sort of review the competitive grant work done here and finish up the details on the, correct any remaining issues on the annual report. I asked him for a follow-up question about availability of the hybrids, which is something that Chief Dwyer was concerned about. And, learned that apparently this is not anywhere 4-year unique issue for West Newbury. It's a broad issue. Availability, you know, performance and anything else notwithstanding, availability is an issue. In not just in Massachusetts, but in other states, apparently there are other states that have more attractive compensation packages, and hence there's more demand for hybrid, so the limited hybrid capacity is often going elsewhere. Hybrid manufacturing capacity is going elsewhere. And that's secondhand information, but I don't have any reason to doubt that it's true.
Mhm. So to answer the question, we have to open the warrant before we.
Yes.
So this is just, he's just an update.
We're gonna do all three. Yeah.
Why don't we run through? the-
Yeah, so I thought, yeah, I kind of put it, it's a little chunky on the agenda, but that was kind of by intent, is to share what's before, and then it's a separate vote, whether you reopen. The next one, the opioid, this had been the intent right along, is to both, transfer the funds and, manage, dissolve the account. But those are two different actions, so this is really just the other half of the earlier initiative, to dissolve the account and transfer these funds to, from.
Revoke the dedication of revenue is really what we're doing. So we can dissolve the stabilization account if it's zero without town meeting. We just need to, where we dedicated a revenue stream to it, we need to revoke that.
Mhm.
And then as long as we can revoke that, then we will appropriate the previously received funds to the new special revenue account.
Okay.
So it is two different votes.
It is,
Yeah,
because
okay.
we need the first to happen before we can do the second.
Okay. So then wouldn't the third one be the CPA for the administrative costs for Solo Brook?
Yes.
Okay, so that,
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been kind of looking at that as I have been looking at that as a modification of the other Sawmill Brook one, but it really is a different article.
yeah. Okay, I was assuming it would be because it's unrelated to trails, but,
Yeah. So that would be the third one, and then also the River Road, which I want to speak to briefly. So the River Road, there's nothing before you in writing on this, but we had this sidewalk today. We all have known all along with this MVP action grant work that's ongoing is going to bring, there's going to need to be a lot of follow-up work to that, because what is the work products of the consultants are not going to result in specific actionable improvements or mitigation that could take place along that stretch of river. So that's going to require additional work, and looking ahead, we would like to be in a position to apply for an MVP action grant next year around this time. And as we saw with the last one, you have to have the local match appropriated. So if we had any, interest in having a local match appropriated at the fall town meeting in anticipation of a grant request next late winter, we would really, our concern at staff level is that the current grant ends June 30th. And we've already got 4 lengthy reports and there's gonna be more work done between now and June 30th. So it's a huge amount of information being generated. And our thought was that if there was funding available to have some continuing consultant support after June 30th, that could be very helpful to put us in a position to have a cohesive request to the fall town meeting for matching funds for future grant application. So we haven't, we had a little email correspondence over the weekend with myself, Christine, Wallace, Rick, and Elisa. And you know, I think there's mixed reception as to whether that's a good idea to try to bring forward funding when we don't have a clear idea of what it would be used for. But, it's something that with the warrant opening, I felt it was worth raising for discussion because, you know, there's definitely going to be need, and after today's sidewalk, it's just so evident how urgent the situation is. So it seems like having some resource, to basically, you know, help process what we learned from the current grant, come up with some tangible next step would be very helpful. But I don't have, you know, I don't have a scope, I don't have, you know, a written article request form. But I wanted to at least raise for discussion whether there was interest in, looking at some amount of money to, either, you know, whether it ends up being retaining GEI past June 30th toward a fall town meeting or potentially some other vendor, but, having some engineering support to take what is going to result from the present grant and, turn it into more of an actionable, proposal, whether that's for, you know, design work or engineering associated with potential shoring up, the shoreline. We know that even things that used to go on, in terms of dropping like, you know, crushed stone along the edge of the river, those are things that require permitting. They require going through natural heritage. In the past, that didn't happen, but that is required. And those kinds of filings, even if it's something as simple as that, really aren't things that we have a lot of capacity to do, without some support, because you're never gonna get those things through natural heritage without some engineering telling you that that's just, you know, a good strategic thing to do. So I just want to raise that for discussion, because if we get to a October town meeting and we don't have a proposal for matching funds, we're really taking ourselves out of next grant round for MVP action grant. Is that fair?
I think that's true, yes.
Yeah, so it's just, you know, this is, you know, it's a high priority issue for the town, and, be good to have some resources toward it.
So, yeah, one of the things I think we need to make, well, first I'll say that I saw, you know, Christine's comments, which are really well thought out, and I've heard what you said, and I now, you know, back in the timeframe out, I understand that it does, I think it probably does make sense.
Mhm.
You know, what you suggested does make sense. The thing that I'm not clear about is how a further action grant is actually gonna work. There's, you know, there's the MVP action grants, and now there's an MVP, it's called MVP 2.0. And it's possible that we're precluded, based on the introduction of this new MVP 2.0, that we're precluded from another action grant under the current program. And I really don't understand all the details. In fact, I understand almost none of the details of the MVP 2.0. But, you know, there's more of a focus on EJ communities and things like that. So it almost, you know, before we go too far, it's probably worth a conversation with Michelle Rowden of the MVP program to make sure that, you know, given completion and approval of what was done with the initial MVP action grant, that we would be eligible to apply for another MVP action grant in for FY 26. Or FY, yeah, it would be FY 26.
So how would the timing of this work out, Angus? We have to get a proposal together by March 27th?
Yeah,
To vote on by the
Yeah.
board and.
well, yes, I mean, yes, in the current. Yes, based on how things have gone.
Okay.
You know, it's not, if I look back, you know, 6 years, there were times that there would be articles on the warrant, not often, but there were times there were articles on the warrant with, you know, with kind of a placeholder amount that was like a ceiling,
Not to exceed.
with a full understanding that work was gonna continue right up until town meeting to crystallize that number. And there have been times that the select board and finance committee have voted on the evening of town meeting, to recommend or not recommend.
Okay,
And it's said in the FinCom booklet, recommendation to be provided at town meeting. So it's a matter of how much, kind of slack does the board and the FinCom want to give to those, trying to, bring something forward.
Yeah.
You could vote a recommendation April 29th, prior to town meeting, or April 22nd, a week before town meeting. To make, the normal cycle, you're right, March 27th is the last scheduled date, but, this is a fast developing situation.
yeah.
And,
Well, so if we put it on as a placeholder, I mean, we could always take it off. If it
Yeah.
turns out that you're right, or you're concerned.
yeah, I mean, you could put it on as a placeholder, and then 2 weeks from tonight on the 25th, we could, by which point there will have been a little more thought, because this really just, it honestly came up because you were opening the warrant. I was like, you know what, we should at least talk about this before we lose 6 months, and then say, oh geez, I wish we had. So that, you could put a placeholder, buy some time, 2 weeks from tonight, if you think there's something viable there, that could be fleshed out.
We might be able to get a reasonable number from GEI, and I assume it would make sense, because GEI will have all the background, they're creating the background, so we might be able to get a reasonable estimate from GEI.
What is the order of magnitude, though? I have no.
I'm thinking like 40 grand.
Those kind
of-
Yeah, we need it.
I think they put it on the warrant, put a number to be capped at and then work backwards.
Yeah,
I think it makes sense.
because what'll happen is June 30th, the grant's done, we will have gone through this incredibly intense process for 9 months. I mean, you see the volume of stuff coming, not just at us, but the whole community. And I think there's gonna be a huge interest on like what's next. And, we're gonna do the best we can, obviously, but I think if we have, some involvement of some engineers who really understand this stuff, it would be helpful.
Okay,
We also are pretty concerned at the staff level, just knowing about the permitting implications of anything along the shore.
yeah.
We're told can be a, year plus process, even once you know what you want to do.
Yeah, that $40,000 number, I almost think it ought to be, as a starting point, ought to be more than that, and we can go down from there if we have reasonable feedback from.
Just leave it as blank for now. You've got a couple
Sure.
of weeks to get closer on it.
Yeah, okay.
So on the Sawmillbrook one, I'm realizing now there's not anything in here about that. So I'll just briefly, we were gonna discuss it.
Yeah, I got that Sunday, so I didn't
Yeah.
know.
So, this is, administrative costs associated with the acquisition, which in the future we will build into CPA projects, but, going forward, Greenbelt has said that they would, pay for the survey costs, but I'm sure there'll be other costs associated with that. To finalize and obtain the land grant, we have to install parking as part of the land grant, receipt, which we did not budget for. There may be technical costs associated with supporting, Michelle to create the land management plan. So I just put in a request for $10,000, and anything not spent will just go back to the undesignated fund. But I really think it's important that we use funds that are available to pay for legal.
Yeah, well, that's what the CPA funds are there for,
Yeah,
but,
so it's after the fact.
right, okay,
Just-
so you really think 10,000 is enough?
I think it is, it's just to cover it until the land management, plan, until the land grant is
Is
received.
this supposed to cover the parking as well?
Yeah, which has to be in by June 30.
But that'll be done by Public Works, it's just really the materials.
Okay, we have to account for and this, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a high estimate.
Yeah.
I hope it's a high estimate.
I think
but,
you're right.
Yeah. So if we're in agreement, I'd like to add that to the warrant, and I have prepared funding applications for CPE.
Well, there, for the parking, is there gonna be wetlands within the property?
No, Michelle looked into that. There were
Okay.
several options, and she chose the one that would be.
Okay, and it's on Sawmill or,
It's on the courthouse,
on courthouse? Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
right where we parked.
Yeah, okay. I guess it, there's drainage, it's not, if Michelle looked at it, I'm sure there's not. And so there's none,
For MIA.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it would require, I think that, yeah, Wendy's right, RDA is not expected to require, and that was.
All right, so it's those four. right?
That's all I have on my radar. Oh, no, I'm sorry, the one Butch sent.
Butch, yeah.
The Butch sent,
Oh.
yeah, that's, to the request to reconsider the trackless accessories.
And I responded to Angus earlier today on that. That's the only one that we cut that I hesitated with afterwards and thought about. So I'm actually glad the push came back
Mhm.
on it, and at the time I will be supporting it. So
Okay.
I rethought it, so I'm glad he did.
What happened is after it was removed, you know, he and I were talking, and he was, you know, articulating some things that hadn't come through clearly. And I said, you know, write it up, and so we did, and, he just asked for that. to
Yeah,
be-
I appreciate that he came back.
Yeah,
and did that too.
I guess another, yeah, I don't disagree with that, and another thing to consider is that, you know, what's the expected life of the vehicle, 20+ years potentially? We're getting less snow, chances are we're gonna continue to get less snow. So having an alternate use of the vehicle all the time, may make sense.
Mhm. Okay, so can somebody make a vote to reopen the,
Yeah, we reopen the warrant to add the, articles that we discussed in the last 15 minutes.
is that a good enough motion?
good enough for me.
Okay,
Second.
all right, all in favor?
I
And then do we need to vote to remove proposed? I mean, that's kind of ongoing, right?
Yeah, you know, I think it's, in every case, it's the sponsor that's removing it, so I don't think you, but as long as you're comfortable with all that, I would just continue to present it that way, that
With the line.
they're struck
Yeah.
at the bottom as having been moved.
And so I alluded to this earlier, the harbor committee bylaw changes, it's just too much, I think, to try to take on with the other bylaws, so I would propose deferring that till the fall. All right, so we have a vote to close the annual special town meeting
vote
warrants.
to close the annual special town meeting warrants.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it being 7:15, I would propose that we shift to the general discussion
We
items.
get that rid of money out of
Bylaws? Yeah. So this is item G, A and B. So I just want to kind of, lay the groundwork for this. These two bylaws, changes were proposed by the select board. This has nothing to do with the town manager or town staff. It's a select board initiative. And it's in response to, concerns and complaints raised by residents on both the hunting and the animal control bylaw. So, and also, I mean, these are not judgments about whether hunting is good or bad, or whether dogs should be allowed to run free. It's just simply, you know, how can we respond to residents and make sure everybody's safety is maintained on public areas? So we'll start with the hunting bylaw amendments. We did receive several comments at the town, at the select board email address. I would say there was one submitted in favor of not changing the hunting bylaw, and one submitted in favor of not changing the animal control bylaw. The rest were in favor of the proposed changes. And I guess we could add this to the packet or something, or make it available online. So then what we're gonna do tonight is just basically get input of anybody that would like to speak. We're not making any decisions. What we'll do is take this input and then as a board decide if we wanna incorporate the changes that are suggested or abandon this bylaw revision amendment, but that'll be at a later date and probably joint discussion at a next meeting. So I know we have a couple people online, people in the audience want to speak to the hunting bylaw revisions. If you could just state your name and address for the minutes, that would be helpful.
You want me to come up here?
I think we're okay, right? As long as you speak up, you're fine.
Oh, okay. Stuart Georgitis, I'm on, live on 3-4 House Lane. And that property, right across from my backyard is, the property that used to be owned by Jack Austin. It is now part of the
the town's ownership. Um, I'm prepared to speak about a lot of issues around this, so I guess I'll just go ahead. And if you want to ask me questions, free. My experience, my background, just so you know, I have a bachelor's degree in natural resource management and a master's degree in forest soils and a doctorate in soil chemistry and soil fertility. I've been hunting that area for the last 20 years as resident with permission from Jack Austin. I'm a certified hunting safety instructor in the state of Montana. I have certifications from Montana and the state of Maine and Massachusetts for hunter safety. I'm in the record books for Pope and Young, which is bow and arrow, trophy hunters, and bow hunting is my passion. What I see as a problem is multifold with this change. I have no real problem with the first proposed change. It's the second one, which basically effectively eliminates hunting of all forms in the town of West Newbury on town property. As you can tell by my walker, I'm handicapped, so it's not, it is an important issue for me of where I can access hunting, because I just can't go anywhere where anyone else does. I did some research on the comparative safety issues and to give you some ideas about that, in 2018, the statistics in America for injuries per 100,000 people, there were 27 injuries per 100,000 people associated with hunting firearms, as opposed to 158 for off-road bicycle use, and fishing 175. Other recreational activities, you could look at something like football, and there's 4,000, basketball 1,700, skateboarding 1,500, soccer 1,400, bicycle 1,120. I misspoke before, it was motorcycles versus the hunting. No, I was correct. The off-road bicycle was 158 versus the hunting that was 27, and fishing was 175. Another interesting general statistic I would like you to consider is that accidents or attacks that occur in the US, on average per year, there's 1,000 associated with hunting, 1,400 associated with snowmobiling, 10,000 associated with horseback riding, 100,000 associated with ATV use, and 4.5 million associated with dogs. I've looked into the relative statistics or relevant statistics regarding hospitalizations and admissions. And it's a similar story. Basically, hunting ranks fairly low versus dog attacks, horseback riding, motorcycles, skiing, you name it. I don't know the spirit of the other folks that have prompted you to consider this change. But basically, my end comment is that I would propose that a compromise, depending on the nature of the complaints that people have, a good compromise might be to change ordinances so that it was only bow hunting allowed on town property. And the reason for that is that bow hunting depends on mechanical force, not explosive force, as in a firearm. Bow hunting is silent, so there's no noise disruption. It's considered to be far more ethical towards the wildlife. And that's because it requires very close proximity and a great amount of skill. Because in bow hunting, you just can't shoot at half of the animal. Whereas with a shotgun or a rifle, because of its ballistic force, you can shoot at any part of the animal, and it can be lethal. But the downside of it is that because it has such greater range, because of the explosive force, you have a huge risk of, or a much greater risk of collateral damage. Because your projectile can go, in the case of a 22, it can go miles. In the case of a shotgun splunk, it can go half a mile. And you don't see that, obviously, with an arrow. So the disadvantages with a bow versus a gun is that it's a very short range technique and it requires a lot of skill. The disadvantage, of course, with the firearm is noise and collateral damage. Now, with the verbiage that's used here, you're substituting in the term weapon. And when you look up definitions of a weapon is an instrument of attack or defense used in combat. And that means it could be a gun, could be a missile, could be a sword, it could be a knife, it could be a dog, and it could be a horse. All of these have been used as weapons of war. In case of an animal, if you think about a part of the organ of the animal is used for attack or defense. Any animal can be teeth, claws, or stinger.
Sir, we have about 5 minutes left for other comments. Would you mind if I see if anyone else wants to comment, and then I'll come back and allow you to finish? Is anybody on, okay, Nate Pierce, did you have a comment?
It's not about hunting, it's about dog and the leash law, so I'll reserve, a few minutes if you need me to, but I just want to make it known.
Yeah, we're taking the hunting bylaw first. Anybody else online wanted to make a comment? Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So Britannica says a weapon is an instrument used in combat for the purpose of killing or defeating an enemy. It can be a shock weapon, which is a club, pepper spray, or mace, or a sword. A missile that uses muscle power, which would be a javelin, a sling, or a bow and arrow. An object of mechanical power, which would be a crossbow, or catapult, or even a pump BB gun. Or chemical power, which is rockets, missiles, cannons, guns. So basically, what I'm trying to get across is that, as a matter of common sense, I wouldn't use the term weapon to get across the point that other people are probably trying to get across. And you look at the newspapers, past history, you see in West Newbury, we've had lots of reports about dog problems and dog attacks. But we haven't seen anything about hunting. So I think it really, for me, it boils down to a question of why would a multi-use area, a town property, specifically exclude hunters? As opposed to ATVs or snowmobiles or dogs or horses, which have a higher injury rate.
So as it's
Basically-
written right now, that's what the bylaw says,
Yeah.
that it's prohibited unless you get select board approval. So that the key we're after is, the select board approval process. So right now, it's already restricted.
Yes, it's restricted, but you can get approval from the landowner, which would be the selectman.
Right, and in the last 3 years, only one person has requested approval to hunt on. So just for your information, you asked.
Yeah, well, I didn't because I had permission on Boston, but now I would seek that.
Yeah,
But with this change, I'm eliminated entirely.
right.
So it's not a safety issue. It's probably a noise issue. It's a danger perception, which is anybody carrying a firearm on public property, your first thought is danger. I get that. But the thing is, that's where I come forward and I offer a compromise that the safest means of hunting is bow hunting. And it's silent. It's not destructive. And I think that would be a good middle ground.
Okay, I appreciate that. I looked into Greenbelt's policy and they, only allow hunting on certain properties. But you have to get a permit at the beginning of the year and they only allow bow hunting, to your point. So, that's about looked into.
Yeah, I think the bow hunting is the valid component of it and not for this warrant article. We have a gentleman committee was from out of town, he wanted to hunt behind Page School, which to me just like kind of hurt my brain. I have no issues with hunting. I have a gentleman who hunts on my property, bow hunting, so I understand everything you said. It's clean, it's short range and all that stuff. But for right now, I think we're trying to clean up the bylaw. But what I would like to do long-term is to see if there is a parcel in town that could be dedicated each fall to hunting for bow hunting. So it may be a two-step process. It might not be all at once. So I'm not discounting what you have to say, but for this cycle in town meeting, I just don't see how we could get through that whole process at this point.
So I have different thoughts.
Okay, so we're at 7:30, and people.
Okay, so you cut me off first time when we started talking about this. Well, this is troubling for me, Wendy, because when we first started to speak about this, you asked me, do you really have something to add? And I do have something to add. Okay,
Okay,
so
so
please respect that.
Okay, what I started this off with is this is an opportunity to get input from the public and
Okay.
we would discuss this at a later time. If you feel like you need to speak now, then go
I'd
ahead.
like to speak for a minute.
Okay.
And I agree 100% with what you just said. And I'm sorry, I don't remember your name.
Stuart.
Okay, Stuart, thank you. To me, it's hard to imagine that there can't be some town-owned land where it is appropriate for there to be certain types of hunting. And in this particular case, I think personally that bow hunting is appropriate, firearms are not. There is a range issue, there is an audible noise issue. And there's a perception, whether it's correct or not, of safety, personal safety issue by other people. So in my opinion, banning hunting on all town land, no exceptions, is not appropriate. And I think that we can take a more deliberate, more intelligent approach. I supported the idea of an increased fine for people who don't get permission. But I do not support an outright ban of hunting on town land.
What if it was a two-step process as Chris described? Or would you rather just leave it?
I personally, I'd rather leave it as is because I'm afraid that it will be sticky,
Mhm.
that the first step will be sticky.
Okay,
So I'm sorry if I came on too hard there, but I was cut off the first time. That was the way I perceived when we first talked about this. And I do, no, back when we first talked about this several weeks ago.
okay. All right, thank you for your comments. Appreciate your for being here. So the next item that we wanted to talk about is the animal control bylaw, if you could pull that out, Angus. So this also was one, that we brought about in response to, reported incidents of people being bitten and, other dogs being attacked. This is something that the animal control officer has asked for us to tighten up so that she's able to enforce what the bylaw is. Deb, did you want to speak to this?
Well, yeah, and I'm ambivalent about this. I love the fact that the Mill Pond Recreation Area allows loose dogs under verbal control. I realize that not everybody who has a loose dog out there has a dog that is under verbal control. And I personally got dumped a few years back when there was a dog walker out there with 9 dogs. And they were not under control. And most everybody I ride with at some point or another has had a dog incident. But for all the years I've been riding in there, generally the people are very cooperative. The dogs are very well behaved. I wonder if, as Stuart has suggested with the hunting bylaw, there might be an interim step. We might allow dogs, I know we can't do a dog park due to the conservation restriction on the Pipe Stave and Mill Pond land. It seems to me we've looked into that and the conservation restriction won't allow that. But maybe there could be a limited time period where, as they do in Newburyport, the park down by the river, loose dogs are permitted during a certain period of time, whether it's, you know, a few hours a day or a few hours a week. I love riding with my loose dog next to my horse. So that there seems to me that there might be a middle ground here, that we don't have to ban dogs. I think in the Riverbend Conservation Area, knowing that any place you have loose dogs, you have 60% fewer birds. It's something, we don't want loose dogs everywhere in town. But it seems to me that the big backfield on Pipe Stave, I love seeing people out there with their dogs who are taking advantage of it. So I'm ambivalent about banning it altogether.
Okay, thank you. Nate, Nate Pierce, would you unmute?
Yeah, hi, I'm Nate Purse, Jen Purse. We live at 614 Main Street. And I think that was Deb Hamilton. I would echo what she said. We walk our Labrador, so nature of the dog, at Pipe Stave, and we leash the dog in the parking lot. We know when there's horses, we leash the dog. We know when there's kids playing soccer, we leash the dog. So we are responsible dog owners. You can take that for whatever it means. And I think in the same kind of gesture of the hunter, if you consider areas and spaces where it might be appropriate to have no leashes, as a resident of town for 20 years, we would appreciate that. We're obviously not going to walk our dog to West Newbury Market on the sidewalk without a leash. So I would just ask the select people to kind of maybe think not an all or nothing approach, but in same token as Deb Hamilton, consider areas. And I'll let my wife speak.
I would echo what Deb has said as a horse person and a dog person. The issue typically is that people come to our town with knowing they can let dogs off leash, and there's a volume of dogs that happen with dog walkers who bring their dogs who are not under voice command. And our dog is certainly not perfect. We try really hard to manage him perfectly, but I think when people are bringing dogs from out of town and they have 5 or 6 or 7 dogs, 3, 4, whatever it is, that's when we're having issues, and we're having dog fights. We're having dogs injured. We're having issues, and we have spoken to animal control. It's to make a blanket statement that you can't have your dog off leash in West Newbury is very upsetting and disappointing to us, and we're not pleased by that. So I'm just trying to voice the for those of us that live here and use the space every day and try to be responsible, we have to figure out a shared environment, which West Newbury has always emphasized, and we've worked really hard to figure out sporting, horses, dogs, and it would be a shame to have it be a blanket statement that we can't have our dogs off leash in town property.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dan, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan Finbury, Crane Neck Street. To restate what's already been said and keep it short, it's us that need the training as much as the dogs, and we take it seriously. I take it seriously. We put them through training as in puppyhood, and I always carry a leash for close quarters or if something were to happen. But my dog, like many, is under voice control. Can't say it's going to be 100%, but she's pretty great. And she also has an electronic collar that vibrates and makes sounds, and she knows what each of them means. And to make a blanket rule that prohibits this kind of use of property by responsible dog owners, I get it, but I think it's a slight overreaction. It's a blanket rule that certainly makes it easier for policing, takes away all discretion. Anybody off a leash is, subject to fine or whatever. But West Newbury is obviously not a cityscape. It's why we're here for many different reasons. But to hike and to walk in the woods and in the like at beaches without a leash is wonderful for the animal. It's great for us. It gets us out. Sometimes it's actually possibly more dangerous to us in inclement weather to be using a leash because it's slippery, it's wet, it's slick. So it's better for the animals, certainly healthier for them to get their exercise, not be lugging us along. But as long as they remain within our ambit, within our responsibility and control, which is everything, I think that's what we try to shoot for. But I do understand how it's hard to make a rule that allows those discretions, but I think it's important because otherwise there's just no discretion and no ability to do what's so natural and what gives so many of us such great delight, not to mention our animals. Thank you.
All right, thanks. See, we have Kate, and was there a Callie? Callie, did you want to speak?
Yes, hi, Callie Town. I live at 17 Pleasant Street in West Newbury. And I would just also like to echo some of what's been said. And further that I appreciate that the board is looking at tightening up the language of this bylaw so that it is more enforceable for our animal control officer. But with the blanket statement of all dogs needing to be leashed in every town property, I have to question how enforceable that is for our current animal control officer. I also feel that the issue as it's been described and as the animal control officer themselves has experienced, the issue is over mixed use on town property. And that has, given the volume of dogs and the volume of people that are increasing in our town, that's becoming more and more problematic. People in general are not very good at reading dog behavior, and that is where a lot of the negative interactions are occurring because people are taking risks with their dogs being off lead that are not maybe healthy for the dog or the people surrounding them. I would encourage the board to look at options for compromise that might include specific areas where off-lead dogs are allowed, and that is well advertised. I also wonder and question what the volume of negative interactions has been pre-COVID, during COVID, when the rules at particularly Pipestave and Mill Pond were restricted to town residents only, and then post-COVID when those rules were relaxed. I've seen a huge volume increase in dogs recently at Pipes Dave and Mill Pond post-COVID. And I think that anytime you're having an increase in that, as Nate and Jen mentioned, where there's people bringing large numbers of dogs all at the same time, there's no way they can possibly control 5 or 6 dogs all at once. So I wonder if there might be an opportunity to look at that as an option to go back to town residents only in certain areas. And that off-lead for town residents is by permit or something along those lines. Those would be some suggestions I would offer. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, did you want to make a comment? Is that the full screen, Angus?
It is.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, thank you all for your comments. We will continue discussing this and see what we come up with for town meeting. If you have further comments or thoughts, please feel free to send it to our email at selectboard@wnewbury.org, and we'll take those under advisement. All right, so let's go back to the agenda. So we're on item F, E, review and update of capital articles for review by the Capital Improvement Committee.
This was put on really, for the primary purpose of, in anticipation of the cruiser article, just for that to be referred. But I did go ahead and write a, memo with a bunch of updates on different capital items. We have had a couple of really good discussions with the Capital Improvements Committee. They've really been very thoughtful in their, looking at the different, proposals, especially the last meeting, we got just about all the article sponsors present. I think it was really a lot of good, thoughtful discussion that resulted in some good suggestions and some retooling that's underway in a couple of instances. So I'm happy to elaborate on that, but I put what I know in the memo and really with the tangible action being referring to the police cruiser to CIC.
Okay. And so how are these processes working together with the FinCom and Select Board review? Are we approving ones before the CIC has even completed the evaluation?
Yeah.
Is that problematic or?
Well, it's tough. I mean, this, the first year that we didn't, in my tenure, at least in the last 4 cycles, that we didn't start the capital process in the late fall.
Mhm.
When I started, it was routine that they wouldn't meet until January, February. So this year has been very typical of how it used to be. But this year, for a lot of reasons, which it just wasn't possible to get all those capital articles ready in the October, November timeframe. So, so they've kind of been up against it, just having had a couple of meetings and just also the volume of stuff that's been brought forward has really been unprecedented, at least in my experience, of just the number of proposals. I think, early on when we were looking at the calendar and the FinCom last meeting being March 27th, knowing that's only 9 days after the deadline for the capital report, it just didn't make sense to hold off on having FinCom and Select Board not vote their recommendations on the capital articles till after March 18th. It would have really squeezed everything even more than it is. So I think, I think it's gone pretty well. There's some duplication, there's some redundancy, but I think the capital meetings have allowed a deeper dive on not just the imminent proposals, but the, longer term thinking about some of the assets like Page School that has really been practical in either the Select Board or Finance Committee meetings, just because the agendas are more focused, just because they have a narrower scope. So, ideally, we would have the capital process start in the more of the November timeframe, so that by the time they're getting into making recommendations, they've had a couple of months to chew on the proposals.
Any questions, Chris? Comments? I assume you don't, because you're on it. Okay. Let's see. Item F, continued review of the framework for potential budget and step increases. So we don't have any new information. I don't know if you had any input, Chris, since you weren't here at the last meeting. I guess where we landed on this was we wanted to try to come up with a percentage of the labor budget, not overtime, not contract. And then just say it's gonna be X percent, and then that can be sustained every year, rather than trying to come up with something this year and then do something different.
Yeah, it was funny. Angus did put that out in his letter and I had the same question, then I went, oh, it's already there.
Oh, okay.
So it's a great way to do it.
The problem that we had is that the percentages I have on that page 4 are based on the total salary wage budget. So I talked to Wendy about, she'd suggested, and I agreed with her, that a more logical way to look at it, maybe what's a percentage of those positions that are on the salary grade or salary wage grade step schedule, which would mean backing out unions, backing out contractual employees like myself, police chief and others, backing out all the part-time, public works carried some part-time, a number of departments carried it as needed, and that ended up being, it wouldn't be rocket science, I think Jenny could probably, but I didn't even ask her because she's really busy with other stuff, so, but I think that would be, doable, and it would make more sense rather than the aggregate wages, but the other one was kind of right at hand, so when I was writing this memo, that's what I used. And I did spend some time over the weekend trying to come up with the other one, but, with everything else that had to get done.
And I think the concept is good. You just have to refine it a little by taking out the components you said.
Yeah.
Going forward, just to do that every year is
Now, so do you think it would be the same percent every year, or would that be something that the board should evaluate every year?
should be the same percentage because
That's
the
okay.
pay scales are also
Right.
going up, so the percentage dollar number also goes up with it.
Yeah. that
And
seems-
if you found out that there were people getting left behind, then we can revisit it.
Mhm.
It seems to me that, it's great to go into it thinking it's gonna be the same percentage, but I think we ought to revisit it no matter what every year.
Yes.
Because things change,
Mhm.
and they might change up, they might change down.
Right. So Angus, at this point, this is something that needs to be worked its way into the FinCom review process, right? What do you suggest as far as how we proceed with this?
I understand the objective of having, an objective basis, namely a percentage. I've been looking at it more as, a dollar amount or the percent. Obviously, there's been some focus this cycle, as there should be, on the year-on-year budget growth. So that's why I'm, calling to the far right of what would different dollar amounts add as a percentage of the, FY 25, increase relative to 24. Let's see. It's really what you want to do with it in terms of, obviously, there's a lot of, meritorious employees. But I, can't really get into
Yeah.
specifics without having a framework for what could be supportable financially.
Thoughts on that report? Do you need more information to make a recommendation about how to proceed? Or do you have any thoughts about what we could?
No, I'm good with going with a percentage of the overall, wages, that are, they're on the step level program.
Again, start it that way with a percentage and next year review it and see how it worked.
But we need a percentage now. So if we don't know the labor budget,
I can have that for you tomorrow, and I can even give you different scenarios of what different percentages would be if you like that, and I could have it for Wednesday if you want.
Oh, that'd be
great.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
great thought, yeah.
No.
so I think even if we have that, I think the percent is a random thing. 1% doesn't, so I think really what we're after is a dollar number and then
Right.
we're assign an objective way to get there,
Yes,
right?
right.
So, yeah, so that would be helpful.
I'm gonna say, none of the numbers really kill your budget in any way, so it's, you mentioned previously to a certain number of steps, positions that should be getting something.
Mhm,
I think we saw something on numbers that came together, which are right in the ballpark that we have here.
mhm.
So you can work it backwards from that way to satisfy the problem.
Yeah, the thing about this is that that's an average, so it's, you know, it's kind of a rough estimate.
Yeah, it's also based on 40-hour positions, whereas we have some people on the step system who are part, they're above 20, but they're, maybe they're 20 or maybe they're 28 hours or 32, so it's, the dollar amounts are, yeah, it's just an average based
The
on.
other
40 hours.
thing was your question about the policy questions.
Mm.
You get more than one step raise per year.
Mm.
I don't even know how you answer that one.
I think it's up to Angus, whatever he thinks is appropriate. I think we give him a certain amount of money and then he figures it
Right,
out.
glad he has to do it, not me.
Yeah. Okay, so if you are able to do that, Jenny, I think that'd be helpful. I mean, we still have to figure out how much money it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, though. That's great. We can, work together on that tomorrow.
Okay. So.
Yeah, Good, yeah, thank you.
Right, the next item is a request from the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. So this, property is the
Did
one.
you say fishies and wild?
Fisheries.
I know what you said.
Fishies.
fishies?
Fisheries and what's a colloquial term for wildlife? DFC. So this is the property that abuts Evergreen. And so Greenbelt is working on a tandem deal with them. So they were, as soon as they purchase the property, they'll turn around and sell this to Department of Fisheries and Wildlife. So they're just looking for a letter of support from us for this transaction.
Yeah, and so I would move that we, provide a letter of support regarding the acquisition on Ash Street by Aspiration of Fisheries and Wildlife.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
It's great.
Is there a form letter for this, Angus? I mean,
I
try to
think
craft
they-
something or just,
Yeah, I think we could draft something very quickly. That would
Okay.
be fine.
all right, and then we would all need to sign it, or does it have to be from the select board, or can it be from you on our behalf?
I think it'd be, we might as well just have everyone sign it. I don't think they, honestly, I think they're surprised you took it up so quickly.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're expecting something like, the next couple of days. So we'll draft something up and,
It seems to me that it ought to be select board because it is.
yeah, I think having 3 signatures is a
Owned by the
good,
town.
yeah.
So could it be ready on Wednesday night?
Yeah, we'll draft something for.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, item H is the action.
Was there a vote?
Oh, no, there wasn't.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
It's,
Usually
granted,
Jeff keeps
discussed.
us on track.
I was letting Angus do both.
Oh, trying to get his support. All right, next item H is the Ash Street Management Plan.
We did not hear back from, the state today. I thought we might,
Okay.
but I would be interested in, did you guys have the same questions I had on reading this?
Mhm.
We read it a number of times, so we couldn't really.
Is that an approval or not?
Yeah,
Or do
yeah.
you want something else, or? Yeah. All right, so that's ongoing.
Yeah.
F5, to authorize the FY 25. This already went in, right?
Well, no, so this is basically the same thing as
Oh, on
the,
the, okay.
community project funds was the House side. The congressional directed spending is the same, but it's the Senate side. It's just different terminology. But I went to the webinar a couple of weeks ago and it made clear that it's actually the same pot of earmarked money. It's just different verbiage. So, when it's timely, we would just submit the same project for that. But I thought having a vote to authorize that submittal.
So if the stars align and our Representative Moulton and our senator in this case, I don't recall, it was Mark.
It was Markey, but we would send it through both offices.
And if they all see that I wonder if the stars align and they all see that we or that our project, is, to use the word you used earlier, meritorious, great word, then maybe we'll, yeah.
Maybe.
Sorry, I didn't underline
And then we wait 2 to 3 years for the.
Right,
actual
yeah,
evaluation.
yeah.
But we have to try. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, okay.
so.
So is this the same application platform or is it a whole other?
No, it's different.
Of course.
Be easy.
But it was pretty quick putting together the other one.
Can you use the same letters at least?
Yeah, we did. We used the support letters and for those that we did have some newly submitted, but for those that were submitted last June for the prior grants, we went ahead and included those as well. And we sent everyone a notice ahead of time saying, unless you object, we will use your prior letter for future grants.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, so I move that we authorize submittal of FY 25 congressionally directed spending funding request for the Street Bridge.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
It's nice that you wrote that in such a way that it was the motion.
Bye, Jenny. All right, item FJ, that's a request for a special event permit.
I just want to say, this is the best put together special event application we've had.
There's still some things missing.
No? The one I'm looking at is, it's got all the information ticked off.
Where's the food permit?
I just thought it was really well done.
So this is interesting because at the Park and Rec Commission, she said there was not gonna be any food trucks, so I don't know if that's after. If that's after she filled this out, what's the date on this?
Yeah, this goes back to February 12th.
Okay, so,
I talked to Corinne Friday and, she confirmed it's a library program, which you knew that. And she said she felt the food trucks were too ambitious.
mhm.
And also in her experience, they require a significant, guaranteed fee, which is probably not, supportable. So she may have spoken to Kelly after I talked to her and told her to pull back on the food trucks.
Okay,
I'm not sure, but, Corinne did also, one of the questions I had, Chris, which I thought you'd be jumping all over. Was, toward the top of page 160 of the packet, the, temporary toilet facilities, it's question marks, but we confirmed with Park and Rec, the regular pipe stave porta potties will have been installed by April 8th, so that question's moved. And
did that
then,
come up after the meeting? Cause Doug was gonna check, he wasn't
oh,
sure.
no, I'm just gonna make sure they,
Okay,
yeah, I mean, we're paying, but yeah, we'll just make sure they're. And then, we also had a question on police details, and I did confirm with Corinne that they're prepared to pay the cost of a detail.
and how much is a detail? It's a 4-hour, right?
It's a 4-hour minimum, it depends on the officer, because it's their rate of pay, and it depends on whether it's overtime or regular, but it's, Jenny would have been able to tell us
Okay,
exactly.
but it's based on their rate of pay.
Couple, $200 to $300.
Okay. So
And
one,
there's a vehicle fee as well built into that.
oh, okay. So I just had a question on page 7 of 7, the 161, there's supposed to be a fee if they don't apply 60 days in advance. Do we not enforce that? Or-
So, that up to the board.
There was a little, confusion with this particular, everyone gets confused about this, between the facility use and the special event. Did the facility use come in before, and, because I know then we made her aware of the special event, but I feel like the facility use came a little ahead.
Yeah,
And then she applied for this once we made her aware that it.
Mhm.
with it also being sponsored by the library.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's sort of like charging ourselves a fee.
Well, I think the point is to have people not try to do stuff at the last minute, which is bad even for a town
True, and
organization.
arguably, there was at least 200 or 300 years advance notice of this. And they're projected that far out.
But this is different, because all you gotta do is take it out of one pocket and put it in the other. I agree with you, short.
Well, it comes from the friends.
The friends of the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
must be friends.
yeah. All right.
And I still think it's a good application with the exception of the food trucks, and I assume that was coming later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really cool. It's
Well, it's
something that
like,
we haven't.
I'm sorry, I'm having like, it's like thread the conversation.
On Friday, because it was in, you know, I was putting together the packet and I'm like, I got some questions, and I didn't want to get, you know.
Maybe I'm still overly medicated.
So, but we were able to, you know, kind of put it, and I told Corinne, when I spoke to her, we're committed to make this work.
Mhm.
So it's not about that, it's about just wanting to make sure we're prepared for tonight's meeting.
So would we just move to approve with the exception of food trucks?
And just so everyone understands that, so one of the questions I had was with the release of kids and crossing the street. And we did confirm that the idea with the principal is that kids, paid school students will have the option to participate or not. If they do, their parents will authorize an early dismissal and dismiss their child to the parents, who will then take them across the street. It's still gonna be good to have a detail officer there, but it's not like there's gonna be, you know, teachers like caravanning all these kids across the street. So that made us feel a little better.
Yeah. And it's for adults too.
Yeah, it's a family
Yes.
event. Yeah, that's right.
Only children.
Fit under this. I think it's gonna be fun. Hopefully it's
Great.
their day,
It's, next time it's gonna happen is,
300 years.
Yeah, wow. That's out of our lifetimes.
All
in
right,
this area, anyway. Yeah, exactly. No, no, yeah.
It happens all the time worldwide.
Yeah.
I think we.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the permit with the exception of the food trucks.
Second.
Well, the food trucks, that's a Board of Health, or the Health Department has to sign off. Unless you guys want it, we'll make you aware
I'll
if
let the health department deal with that, and
Yeah.
if it works, that's fine.
we.
Well, I
Okay.
just want to make sure they understand that they can't have them unless they've worked it out with the health department. If we approve this without
Yeah,
having.
Having approval of the board of health.
Yeah, there you go. So only food trucks with the health approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're on the minutes. Got a whole bunch of them. So Rob, are you okay with us approving the minutes and just you incorporating them, or do you want to vote on them as well at your meeting?
You know, I haven't heard back from anybody about that. I would presume that you approving them is fine.
Mhm.
These are recorded sessions anyway, so people can go and see what occurred, correct, Jim?
No,
Not all of them are brought.
not the.
They weren't broadcast, but they were recorded.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're not posted, other than the select board on Monday.
Yeah, well, the fail safe is always, I think, so short answer is unless someone else on the FinCom wanted to make a comment, I would just accept your approval.
Okay,
And then I always feel most comfortable that anything we do gets posted, because you know, that allows us to write shorter minutes. I think.
And I did include these draft minutes in the FinCom packet for Wednesday, just so they're all marked draft, but yeah.
So, just.
so I reviewed on your behalf, so,
I appreciate it.
but you still have comment.
Well, it's on.
Yeah, I
item
unfortunately
FC.
didn't get to the minutes.
Okay.
It's, part of the packet I didn't get to.
Okay, no problem.
Item FC, where he's asking a question, the very last
I'm
sentence,
sorry, what page?
165. He
Okay.
couldn't understand ability to ask for
Oh.
reimbursement through an AIF with Newburyport. Chris, is this correct? I don't know, we're talking, so.
It's probably a MOU.
That's what the only thing I can come up with.
Or IMA.
Oh,
IMA, there you go.
Yeah.
Correct that.
What's the,
Bottom page one.
It's a municipal agreement.
Last line.
yeah,
IMA.
Then you can delete the Chris, is this correct?
There's just a typo earlier on that page under EA. The second to last sentence just should be passed, PASSEB, it just says pass.
is it like? Gotcha.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 12th as modified.
Sorry, I had one other thing. On the top of page 166, it's just a question. Rick, this is on the decarbonization.
Which page?
Top of page 166. So yet to be fleshed out was the commitment on the part of the town logistically and financially. The community received the decarbonization. It's just something missing now. Maybe it should just be financially period, then the community will receive the
This
decarbonization.
is the top of page 160.
Yeah, the fourth sentence beginning with financially.
Okay.
I think it's just it's two sentences that got merged together.
I think if the word if was added, yet to be fleshed out, was the commitment on the part of the town logistically and financially, if the community received a decarbonization roadmap as a result of the program. Would that, so I think that was the idea, to get this roadmap where you then
Okay,
obligated to
to
implement.
implement it. Okay, yeah, so just put it in.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.
All right, I'll second then. All in favor? Aye.
I'm gonna abstain because I haven't read them, but
Okay.
it's not a negative, just.
Yep. All right, did you have anything on the next minutes?
Yeah. Item C, after the 10 bullet points, proposed budget carried with a proposed increase of around $8 million. I don't think that's correct.
No,
I think it's $1,031,485,000.
good guess.
Well, once I saw that, you gotta look it up, right?
All right, do you got that, Jim?
What was the actual number?
$1,031,485.
That was a 40% increase.
You just saved $7 million.
That's what you call missing the mark on rock in the house.
Otherwise, I'm good with things.
All right. And move to approve the minutes of February 15th as amended.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
All right.
Abstain.
All right, and then it's February 20th.
Nope.
There's a lot there. All right,
You all set?
Yep.
Make a motion for the minutes of February 20th.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Next, that you're on your own.
February 26th.
Nothing there.
Okay.
That does not preclude you from approving minutes.
Oh, we'll go for it. I just didn't review them because I have a context in general. I mean, the funny thing, comment on that, I did watch the video online. Number one, the sound goes in and out, so it can be difficult. And then the two is, a lot of the times, the graphic is up, so you don't see the people, and you're not quite sure who's saying something.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I sort of got that when Max might put down somebody's name, but he's doing his best to.
So if we hold off on this one, there would only be two sets of minutes for the next. Correct.
Yeah.
Do
Okay.
you have a problem with that?
No, that's fine.
Because then at least we'll have two people.
Right.
Present.
If you've read them,
I can't just approve by myself.
I can vote on it, I don't have to make it.
But you didn't even read them.
It's okay, I agree with you.
No, nope, not gonna work.
Alrighty.
So that's the 26th or table.
Yeah.
Because it'll just be two sets, this meeting and that meeting.
Yeah, so on the bylaws, I did assemble information, as I mentioned, from Greenbelt, what their hunting policy is, and just links of the town properties where hunting might be feasible with a link to the map. That just gets at the density, you can see where the trails are, how much land, and so that can just be included for our discussion around that survey.
The curiosity is the gentleman who was here. When we received the conservation restriction on that land, there was mention of hunting. And we had been told that there was somebody hunting there. You might
Oh, interesting.
So that is where he's coming from. And I don't disagree.
Yeah.
You know, it would be nice, I think, for some people to have a parcel at some point that they can particularly bow hunt, that could be marked and flagged.
And we'll make everybody aware so that.
Yeah. So,
So Wendy, I'd like to just follow up on that a little bit. So on this schedule that I've circulated a couple of times, you're correct, that we've got these two bylaws on for Wednesday.
Yeah,
But in light of the comments received tonight, is that still timely to bring that forward for Wednesday, or, I mean, that's a
I don't know.
question for Rob as well.
depends what our process is. I mean, I think you said there'll be more opportunities for people to comment, so.
That's right, yeah.
Should we tackle, if we're gonna try to incorporate any revisions, Wednesday would be premature, I think, to discuss.
I mean, it might be good to get, FinCom part of the discussion and then bring it forward again at the next televised board meeting on the 25th.
Okay,
But I guess if it is brought up Wednesday, I think you should probably not vote it, because that
Right.
would really
Oh, yeah.
undermine.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I would bring it up, particularly in light of our previous discussion about whether the FinCom's actually gonna be involved in this type of article. So for instance, you know, we could discuss it, obviously, the FinCom has to be aware of what it is, they might decide not to make a recommendation on, but I could see us saying that we're not gonna make a recommendation on either, and then it's,
okay.
yeah, so,
Back to our-
yeah, so we could cover it, but not conclude it, I guess.
Great, I think that's smart.
All right, that sounds good. Yeah, the $8 fee for boarding was
35.
inaccurate.
That's a little bit.
There goes my plans of vacation. You're off.
Okay, next item is
GC.
GC. Wait a minute, we missed it.
No, GB was dogs.
Right, GC. All right, Comcast is ready.
Yeah, so did this come up at Thursday's CAC meeting?
Yeah, but they've, well, you know, there wasn't a quorum at the meeting before that, and so they just brought it up, but there was no discussion really. So I think we should just move ahead on our own thing, you know. I said that it's, you know, we need input. If you want to provide input, you can't start it.
They seem to want to be pretty hands-off on last requested assistance on this and came out.
The cable advisory. committee,
Yeah.
you're saying? Yeah. I know, obviously Kelly has some thoughts and some recommendations, and I did see that on Thursday's agenda.
She just hadn't had a chance to look at it.
I mean, I think if they send suggestions, that certainly would be really helpful.
They did leave it that they would both look at it before the next meeting and send suggestions, but I'm not sure that's gonna happen. So what's the appropriate response here to just, try to set a date?
Yeah, I think it would probably be helpful to establish, definitely to establish, you know, some communication. Perhaps with, I don't know if you want the full board involved or initially just a member. When I got here, you know, 6 years ago, this process to negotiate the prior license was just torturous. It had been going on for years when I arrived, and it continued to go on. I think it was actually like the summer of 2020 when it was finally, I mean, this thing was torturous. And part of the reason was just what you see having been on the board. There's so much business in front of the board that even if it would be on executive sessions, it might get 5 minutes, or even if it got 20 minutes, it was a consistent bandwidth issue with the board's time. That's why I raised the idea of maybe, like, if we had daytime meetings that were organized around a member instead of the whole board, it just might open things up in terms of moving a process along.
Anybody have an interest in this?
I don't have enough knowledge to be worthy of it, I don't think. I mean, I'm still in the dark on the whole thing. I haven't seen.
I don't think anyone does. I mean, that's one of the challenges as well, is none of us are experts on cable or anything like it.
Well, Kelly Morris does, but it'd be worth inviting her in for a meeting.
Kelly Scott.
Kelly Morris is your contact person
Oh,
in the contract, in the letter, so maybe just get us up to speed. What do we currently have for a contract? How's the industry changing? What should we be looking at?
that's a great setup. That's a great.
I know it's kind of the fox in the hen house, but at least you have a start, you can assess.
Yeah.
It's also what they're asking.
Yeah, we're gonna need to do the same thing with Verizon.
Yeah. So do we have a similar letter from Verizon? Aren't they earlier than Comcast?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, we have a couple of letters from them. Nothing quite, I think everything I've gotten, I've forwarded.
Yeah, I think they
along,
put us on notice that it was coming up.
In,
Right.
like 2
Several
years,
months,
yeah,
yeah.
I think in the fall they did, that it was coming up, and I wanna say fall of 2026.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because I guess they're mandated, they have to give us that long.
Yeah,
heads up.
that's right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know what we're looking for, if there's something they're deficient on, that we should be doing better, that they've messed up, or, I have no clue.
Well, that's what we were hoping to get input on from the cable advisory committee, so I'll continue to push that. All right. Correspondence, there's a letter here from the CUA director about pickleball, basketball courts. Yep, I think she mentioned Newburyport Brewing Company. There was a photo in the Daily News. Did you
Yeah.
see the courts? They're actually like a raised court. It looks like you just bring it in sections and put it down.
Oh, really? No, I didn't see that.
I was wondering if it might be worth looking in, because we could do that in the annex, if it's a portable court that you just bring in and set on the floor.
Problem with the annex is the protrusions from the walls. I mean, if you put like heavy padding maybe,
You think we're gonna have a lot of diving shots by our seniors?
You're actually surprisingly aggressive.
The other thing is, you probably only need one.
That would be a huge deal, right? You could even have it move with Velcro or something.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's just an
Might
aside.
be
I
worth
just had
pursuing,
never seen
but
yeah.
I was gonna take up pickleball and use the Newburyport Brewing Company, but
those.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the setup and breakdown is, you know, what it takes for people power and then where you store it. 'Cause I think
it's a
they're
future
using-
select board meeting location.
I think they're using, I haven't seen the space that it's in, but I think it's part of their you know, brewery, that is essentially unused space right now.
Yeah,
Other than that.
anybody know anyone over there? To reach out and see what.
I mean, I'd be happy to invest.
Yeah, actually.
Let's go, Jim, be driving.
I will wander sometime, I'll wander, I haven't been there for beer for a couple of years.
All right,
so
that's
I'll-
your sign.
Right, so.
The tough one, right?
That's right.
So you probably have to post it, but we'll all be
Right,
there.
right. Can the beer come out of the tech, no, I'm just kidding. The technical budget.
All right, moving on. So Park and Rec didn't have a quorum, because somebody had to recuse themselves, so they'll take this up the next meeting. There's still the continuing issues of noise over there and, or perceived continuing issue.
Yeah, I had, Christine had spoken with me about this, and I had suggested she send a memo along these lines, just to start a conversation
Yeah.
sooner before it gets to like a crisis point timing wise.
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, even on the basketball courts, it's definitely limiting the participation. It's much higher at the tennis club.
Yeah.
You know. So definitely need a long-term solution. Okay, item B. Cares regarding public hearing on retiree COLA. Okay, so this is nothing we have to, do. This is just the notice that they're having a hearing.
It is, unless you want to take a position on whether to support that or not. It
Did
would
we do
obviously-
it last year?
We did not, we didn't take the recommendation for a larger one.
We just did that.
Right, well, I think they were doing 2%, and then they were asking for a higher number, for approval for a higher number,
Yeah.
if I remember right.
That's right, yeah.
And then we said no.
Okay. Oh, so just looking for comments. Okay.
So unless there's an intent to take a position on this, there's no action needed.
Well, how do we feel about 3%?
It seemed wrong to me to have a higher COLA percentage here than we do for our employees, our current employees.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Yeah. So I guess if we don't take a position, are we tacitly agreeing with whatever they decide?
I think if you have an opinion, it would be good
Okay.
to express that. And this is just in for correspondence, so it may be that would be a subsequent agenda.
You know, the other thing I think is worth mentioning is that, yeah, so this is just on the first $16,000 of eligible members benefit, so.
So 3% is $480, 2% would be 24,000, so it's not like you really, you know, so I'd keep what Rick's saying in mind.
I think that's a nuance that most employees won't pick up on. But fair point. Oh, jeez.
Is that true for the, Essex Regional Retirement System in general, that the COLA Or for, I mean, that isn't true for, yeah, restate that.
16,000, you mean?
Yeah. Cancel that thought. Right,
Different places are
Yeah.
doing different minimums.
yeah.
All right, we have a support letter from the Department of Public Utilities. Are we sure what that is?
That came in after the posting, so I
Oh,
just
okay.
tacked it on at the end.
All right,
And I did send that along to the, what, the energy and sustainability.
Yeah, and I think I threw that, maybe it was the last day into, my calendar mistake. Yeah, it should be, May 29th in Salem City Hall. I don't guarantee I'm gonna be there, but that's in my schedule, in my calendar.
okay.
And it's really, I think I should reply to the email, I guess, and to the committee that, you know, if we'll talk about it, if there's something that we want to specifically address, then I'll go, but I don't, otherwise I probably won't.
All right. Anything on the charge point? Report?
No, other than that, it's a little frustrating that I had imagined that by now we would be getting more usage. You know, and essentially there's zero usage of the page, or there's not actually zero usage, near zero usage, at page, and less here. It's interesting to me that, you know, there's a big push right now to build out more EV charging stations nationwide, and there's a bunch of federal money, and I think the money's just becoming available now. You know, so presumably at some point, those chargers are gonna be used, but, you know, ours is an interesting example in that we're really getting limited usage. It may be, I'm sure it's largely related to the fact that other than the town office building, here, there's no other commercial activity around. And I'm pretty confident that the largest portion of the charging done, shown here in this report, is actually by somebody who's a resident in the senior housing, and kudos to them for for having an EV and using our charging stations. But it's a little bit of irony. But that's, you know, that's one of the problems with people who, and, you know, who have rental housing, is frequently chargers are not available. So we're unintentionally filling in a niche for chargers that we didn't even realize when we put them in.
Okay, future agenda items?
No. Got enough on the table right now.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
Actually,
Just for the record, I thought this was gonna be a long meeting, and here, I'm like flabbergasted.
Right.
Technically, it would be 9:30.
Oh, that's right, that hasn't been reset.
That is.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
It's like, I can't even believe.
We can sit here and chat after if you want.
Actually, can I just make a quick comment about the application for, decarbonization planning? So I had a conversation, I know this is not on the agenda, it happened right before I went off for a week. But we did talk with, person from, Power Options. She sent us a proposal. In the conversation, it seemed to me as we went on, that there might be sense in our considering not just this building, hopefully the senior housing and the annex, but perhaps if we're build, you know, major energy using town meeting buildings in general, including the public safety complex and the library as well, the planning process. So she sent us a proposal for 5, but not for 3 buildings. The number's not a big, it's a little over $3,000. And I'll forward that to you, Angus, to distribute, but, you know, I just wanted, before I did that, I wanted people to understand that we recognize what we talked about was 3 buildings, and the only proposal we have now is for 5 buildings. I need to reach back out and ask for one for 3 buildings. It came in last week while I was out. I did see it last week, but I haven't responded. So 5 buildings is a little over, it was 3,900. I don't recall the number exactly, 3 buildings will be something less than that. And, then the question is, how do we fund that, if we do it? And, we'll talk about that, I guess.
Okay,
Motion adjourned.
Second.
all in favor?
That'd be a record.
We get to do it all again Wednesday.
Yeah.